What is the point of this life? What is it in our heart of hearts that we're all ultimately longing for? What is the end to which we strive so desperately to attain? Well, the answer is ultimately God. The human heart was made for God, and therefore, as St. Augustine says, it is restless until it rests in Him. For the purposes of this video, I'm just going to assume this point rather than seek to prove it. Happiness consists in communion with God. And if you doubt that, just read St. Augustine's Confessions. It's an absolute banger. Rather than focusing on happiness as such, I want to look at what the happy life essentially consists of. An answer I'm going to propose is this: happiness consists in leisure. Leisure is the very goal of our existence. What your heart most longs for is the rest that comes from leisure. Yeah. Now, when you hear this, that leisure is the goal of our existence, it might seem rather counterintuitive. Isn't the main problem in our times the fact that we enjoy too much leisure, that we have too much time on our hands, and that we don't actually work hard enough towards accomplishing things that are worthwhile? For example, maybe if people just got off their phones and spent more time doing hard work, wouldn't life be much better? In response to this, I agree that we do not spend enough time doing work that is genuinely productive. However, I would argue that leisure is not the cause of this problem, but is actually the solution. It is only when we enjoy true leisure and order our entire being towards leisure that our work becomes genuinely productive. Contrary to popular opinion, scrolling on your phone for 5 hours a day is not true leisure. It's not true rest. And this is not really what we're looking for in our desire for leisure. If leisure is the point of existence, then it is important that we actually define this term leisure. Leisure, in my opinion, formed by Joseph Piper in his book, Leisure as the Foundation of Culture or something. Leisure is a state of contemplative stillness. It's a condition of the soul in which one is open to all reality. To be at leisure is to gaze upon the world in a purely receptive manner. To be at leisure is not to work upon the world or seek to bend reality according to our wills or transform it through labor or production, but to be at leisure is to behold and receive reality as it is and as it reveals itself to us. True leisure is rest, contentment with the world as it reveals itself, as it's been created by God and intended for us to be, intended for it to be experienced. It is the act of intellectus, which is simply looking, gazing upon. Leisure is effortless. It requires no exertion. It shouldn't be something that's strenuous or even difficult. To be at leisure is to be at total rest. With this definition in mind, we can begin to see why our habit of doing things like scrolling is not really leisure. Leisure is by its nature contemplative, open to all reality, open to the fullness of reality, open to, ultimately, the vision of God. Scrolling on our phones typically is receptive only to a distorted, mediated technological reality. It does not tend to open oneself up to reality in its fullness, but leaves one within the realm of the particular, the finite. In other words, modern forms of rest are not typically receptive of God Himself. And this is really what true leisure is aspiring towards, this vision of God. We typically use technology not to open ourselves up to reality, but rather to escape it, to flee from reality. Our minds and hearts do not enjoy stillness when given to these habits. And that is why the modern man, or it's at least one of the reasons why the modern man is so burnt out, because after completing hard work, the form of rest that we engage in just makes us more tired because it's not true rest. It's not true leisure. The modern man is ever stimulated, ever grasping, ever striving, but never at rest. Okay, so we know what leisure is and what it isn't, but it remains to be seen what exactly the necessity of leisure is. The necessity of leisure derives from our nature as rational animals. As creatures possessing the faculties of intellect and will, we do not exist merely for the sake of labor and survival, but the contemplative reception of being. This is what we are ultimately ordered towards. Our highest act is not production, but union, the beholding of the fullness of being, communion with God Himself. Non-rational animals, like my dog Darwin, for instance, do not possess these spiritual faculties of intellect and will, and therefore cannot enjoy leisure in the sense that I'm speaking of. My dog Darwin cannot enjoy the perfect rest that comes from beholding God Himself, because he has not the eyes to see Him. For my dog Darwin, rest comes when he has some food or sleep, or when I give him a belly rub. But the rest that humans seek, the rest that rational animals seek, is of a whole other order than this rest that Darwin enjoys. The rest that we desire is found in leisure. Okay, I've been speaking about leisure quite abstractly, but let's speak about it more concretely now. How does one actually enjoy leisure? What does it look like to order your life towards leisure? Well, first and foremost, the perfection of leisure is in worship. And I think this is part of the logic of the Sabbath rest. For one day a week, God literally commands us to do nothing except to worship Him. No production, no industry, no labor, just worship of Him. And this is what real rest looks like. This is what total openness to reality and being really is. It's worship. So first and foremost, that's where leisure is primarily found, in this communion with God that's found in worship. While leisure is perfected in worship, it is also not limited to worship. Leisure can also just look like sitting in nature and appreciating God's creation, receiving it into your soul. Leisure can just be going for a walk, or going for a surf, or just sitting by a fire. These things, anything that opens you up to receiving the world and to receiving reality, those things are leisurely, and those things help us to stop and to rest. So yeah, they're just some thoughts I've had on this topic of leisure. I don't mean to in any way demonize work. I think doing good work is absolutely integral for a full human life. It's important that we do produce and we do labor. Yeah, that's integral to our nature as well as rational animals. But really what I'm trying to point out is that work must be subordinated to leisure, because leisure is the goal of our existence. What we're ultimately longing for, again, is that perfect rest that comes through leisure. A lot of people, when they do enjoy rest, they simply enjoy it for the sake of working better. They take time off work so they can have a break, so that they can be more productive. I would say that this is a disordered approach, that this would be to subordinate leisure to work. I think that in our work, it should be ultimately ordered towards the enjoyment of rest, which is found in leisure. Everything we should do should be ordered towards enjoying rest and ultimately communion with God. And again, this is not to be found in a lot of modern forms of rest, like scrolling and things. It's found in that openness to being, taking a walk, enjoying creation, reading a book that's edifying, and ultimately it's found in worship of God Himself, the Trinity. So, yeah.